I'm Sienna. I'm the kid.
I'm Sarah. I'm the mom.
This is Queer Kid Straight Mom.
Let's talk. Welcome back to Queer Kids Straight Mom. This is part 2 of our 2-part series on heated rivalry.
That's right. You're still stuck listening to us about it forever.
Like everybody else. Everybody's stuck listening to everybody talk about heated rivalry. This episode is focused less on the story itself and more on the fans and this sort of toxic atmosphere that so many queer shows seem to be forced to exist in.
Alternatively, why we can't have nice things.
Why we can't have nice things. You know, we've seen this before. We talked about this with Heartstopper. One of the stars, Kit Connor, was harassed about his sexuality, and he finally came out, like, kind of against his will, really. And, you know, there's all this conversation about just because you play a queer role, especially like in a show that is talking about the challenges of navigating, you know, learning about yourself and figuring out how to come out to people that you care about, and the challenges of feeling like you have to live this secret life. Like, all of these things that are portrayed on screen don't seem to carry over to people when they finish watching the show and all of a sudden think that they have a right to know about or be disappointed by actors in the show's personal lives and sexuality.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's an aspect of it that's, you know, the limits of the power of storytelling, as it were, that we look at these shows as like, oh, they're so powerful. They send such powerful messages. And it's true, they do. But it seems like, you know, a lot of people really are not getting that they're watching the show in this very sort of shallow lens. And then when it comes to real life, you know, they turn around and they just like don't care.
I was thinking about this. Do you think there's an aspect with some of these shows that, you know, in heated rivalry, that, you know, part of the storyline is sort of keeping secrets and figuring out what happens in this world if I do come out? And especially in Kip and Scott's storyline, another way that this is similar to Heartstopper is this relationship where the openly gay person is, you know, feeling some distress in the relationship because the person who is closeted is trying to keep this secret and doesn't want people to see them and doesn't want people to know. And that's really hard on the open person.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that those stories, as wonderful as they are, and like it sets it up so beautifully for that moment when they do come out, do you think that leaves audiences sometimes feeling like it's bad for the people around you if you're in the closet and like, we all accept you, we love you, just come out?
Well, this is interesting because I have seen media that I do think, you know, portrays you're ruining my life because you won't come out and it's so hard to be me and it's all about, and it's like, well, I mean, it is hard, right?
And I don't think these shows particularly portray it that way.
I just don't understand how you could watch that and get that message, like that it's not like Scott doesn't want to come out, right? Like he's trying really hard.
No, I
And you
agree.
see how much strain it's putting on him. And so it's very odd to me that anyone would watch that and be like, yes, the correct thing to do is put more pressure on people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out maybe what the process is in people's brains, but not really being able to take it to the action state that like people are taking it to. Like, maybe you do feel like actors that don't want to come out if they even are queer. Like, maybe what you feel like is, I don't want you to have to go through that. We all love you. Just be open about it. Not getting the message that that is not that easy of a thing to do.
Well, I think maybe part of it too is that there's a perception of privilege, like, oh, you're making so much money off of this show and you're well situated in society and you could make such a big difference in people's lives by coming out, which is, I think, coming from a good place. It's just so warped and twisted that, yes, just because someone has been in a really successful TV show one time does not mean that, you know, they're not facing struggles in their personal lives, their professional lives, that they don't worry about how coming out will affect their career, that if they come out, maybe they never get another job.
Right. I think there is a ton of pressure, I mean, from things that you read on queer actors to not come out because it will, you know, supposedly hurt their career. And that might be true. We like to think that we're evolved, but we might not be that evolved. Like, maybe you come out and you are forever typecast as the gay guy in every movie you're in ever again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's The other star of Heartstopper, Joe Locke, has talked about that, has talked about, obviously he's gotten some amazing opportunities like playing a character in Agatha All Along, which is awesome. And it's awesome that there's, a gay superhero that's being portrayed in the MCU. But at the same time, he's talked about how I don't want to only get to play like characters that are gay. I don't want to be like in the pool of, oh, we need a gay actor, better look up that gay kid. That's understandable to not want to be, not only from a career perspective, locked into a more limited pool of roles, but also just not have that be the first and only thing that people think of when they think of you.
Yeah. I did see somewhere in like all this discourse I've seen, because we've had all these conversations about like, should straight actors get to play queer roles, right? This person said, I would rather have straight actors play queer roles than have queer people be forced to come out because they played queer roles.
Right. That's basically it. And I think there's also an aspect of it that, for whatever reason, I guess because queer people have been for so long forced to find actors and stars that they relate to or that they find compelling, regardless of whether that person is queer or not. Whereas straight people, I think, get to like determine a lot of how much they like an actor based on how much they perceive that actor as being attractive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think probably part of that pressure is also that, but if you come out as gay, you might not be seen as desirable anymore. And that does have like a significant impact on your career, on people being able to cast you, on all of this stuff. And I think we're seeing some of that with all of these straight women who were okay with Connor's story being queer in the TV show, but being queer potentially in real life in a relationship with the wrong person is no longer attractive to them and therefore no longer acceptable.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the things we're talking about here is I don't want to specifically repeat any, rumors or anything because I don't want to be part of that. But, there has been kind of a reaction to him stating that he doesn't want his personal life to be public. That, yeah, the accusations of queer baiting start. And then, yeah, it's like a sense of ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I mean, you can be gay, I guess, if you are with the guy that you're with in the show because we love you guys together, but not anybody else because that's not our version of this.
And like, that's maybe part of what I was talking about a minute ago, this idea of like the limitations of representation and the power of storytelling. If you're a straight woman who watches gay men on a TV show and you're like, oh my God, I love gay men. They're so cute. They're so hot. But then you turn around and you're so possessive and controlling in real life and you reinforce homophobic stereotypes. That doesn't make you an ally.
Right. I mean, that is kind of a thing, right? That's always existed is like straight women that think that because they have a gay best friend, they're a good ally. But there are so many versions of that where the gay best friend really just exists to shine a light on her and to give her advice and to make her better and be comic relief for her. And it is never centering the gay best friend. And yeah, I think you kind of see a reflection of that in the way people are reacting to like, oh, these are my gay best friends now. And it's all about how I want to see them. And that's a little weird.
And for what it's worth, I also don't want to like let cisgender queer women off the hook here either, because I think like they do that to some extent as well. I have noticed this in the circles I operate in, like this bizarre obsession with like having queer male friends and they're so fabulous and they're so amazing and you want to be so affirming of them. Or the same thing goes for transgender women. Like there's this girl, I want to give her like all of my old makeup because I'm so generous and supportive. I don't know. There's probably some sort of psychological reasoning that you can go into, like why people who are sort of raised with social expectations of femininity, like manifest those feelings in certain ways. But it's not limited to sexual orientation, I don't think. I think queer women do it too.
Interesting. Especially given the storyline itself, the show itself, the messages that it has, that like people want to read so much into what actors are doing in their personal lives. Like what relationship somebody is in or it looks like they might be in, like Shane and Rose. in everybody's view, were a couple, right? They had no idea what was going on in that relationship.
Well, it's funny because the show actually does like go through all these comments of everybody being like, "Oh my god, the way they look at each other, this is so real." And it's like you were just seeing this tiny little slice of people's lives. You have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about the parasocial relationships before, right? Do you want to like kind of explain what that means?
Yeah, it's just this idea that, when people are presented with a public figure, whether that's a comedian, a podcaster, an actor, whatever it may be, anything where someone's personality is sort of presented to them in a personable way, that they develop this attachment and they don't think it in so many words, but the basic idea is like, this person is creating this for me specifically. Like, we have a connection. Like, I know that this is available to everybody, but really it's a connection between me and this creator. And obviously that's not true, but it can lead to some really, really problematic behavior.
Great art. You know that it is good when you feel like it's speaking to you, right? Like that is a sign of somebody that knows what they're doing when they create this. The things that we really love, we love because something in it speaks to us. And I just wonder if like people just don't understand that.
Well, I'd be really interested. Hey, political psychology master's degree person, you should do some research on this. I'd be really interested to see if there's a connection between, people who don't have strong support networks in their real lives, whether that's queer people or whether that's just, people who are really into books or really into TV shows, like they're seen as kind of nerds and maybe they don't like have a lot of friends for that reason. That if those individuals are more susceptible to developing those parasocial relationships, which is not at all to say that parasocial, like, there are all sorts of people who have like weird parasocial relationships with very sort of conventional Taylor Swift football players, whatever it may be. But I do wonder if you don't have a strong social support network outside of those experiences, if you're more susceptible to that becoming like an unhealthy fixation or relationship.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I could see that. Which, I mean, I guess is probably a reminder to, I guess, try to be somewhat compassionate towards people that are doing this, even though they are potentially hurting somebody else. Like so many things, a lot of bullies were bullied, right? Yeah. And I mean, some of it's probably just immaturity too, right? Like when you're 16, you're like, maybe I'm going to meet that person someday.
Yeah.
Generally goes away.
And then a lot of this is happening in like online sort of echo chambery spaces where people are just saying like the most poorly thought through thing that they want. And then other people say stupid, poorly considered things in response to them. And it's not an effective forum for fostering healthy discourse, shall we say.
I saw somebody say, like, maybe it's bots. And I was like, but why? Like, to what end? Like, wouldn't they rather have everybody just be happily obsessed with heated rivalry than thinking about, for example, the Epstein files? But maybe getting people to fight about heated rivalry is also a distraction from the Epstein files. Why? I don't know why bots would be motivated. I mean, bots don't have motivation, but the people that program bots, like, why would you be motivated to like, let's throw a bomb about the actors from Heated Rivalry out there and see what happens? Well, that might be why. I can see the temptation, actually. I would not want to hurt people in real life, but if you don't care about other human beings, I can see where you might be interested in seeing what happened if you did that. And you talked too, and this specifically being about queer media, beyond just the issues of accusations of queer baiting and things like that, that it doesn't seem like people do this to the same degree about straight actors.
Yeah, like what I said was, I was like, can you think of an example of straight actors where people have been so unable to get over the idea that the relationship in the piece of media might be fake, right? So in this case, Ilya and Shane. I've seen it other times. I think it was true to some extent with Heartstopper as well. Like that was also part of why there was so much backlash to Kit Connor maybe dating a girl. And a few years ago, when the It movies were coming out, there was also a similar thing with Finn Wolfhard. I think he plays maybe a gay character in the It movies and he had a love interest or whatever. And then people were like really convinced that he and this other kid needed to be in a relationship, which is extra weird because they were like children at the time. So like that takes it to a whole nother creepy level. Do people do this with straight actors? Because I haven't been able to think of an example.
I know. I was thinking about it too after you asked me that. And I was like trying to imagine, like, was there a world that I just wasn't aware of where like Brad Pitt was getting death threats from marrying Jennifer Aniston because it meant she wasn't with David Schwimmer and Ross and Rachel weren't actually together? Like, I can't imagine that, but social media wasn't really a thing back then either. So I don't know.
I think everyone was delighted when Zendaya and Tom Holland got together, but I don't think anyone was, like, saying they couldn't date anybody else while the Spider-Man movies were coming out either.
Yeah, I am having a hard time coming up with that. And then we talked a little bit again, like I don't want to like repeat specific things, but there's just been some speculation about an age gap between two people on the show that people think could possibly be in a relationship with no real evidence of that. And the hate that the older one has gotten, that I don't think you see that same sort of attitude toward older men dating younger women.
Right, what I said is I was like, "Are these people boycotting movies with Leonardo DiCaprio? I don't think so."
Right. And it's not even that like insane an age gap.
But again, it's this parasocial relationship thing, right? Because, let's say a 15-year age gap, like, okay, you can see a situation where if your friend starts dating someone 15 years older than them, that you're like, hey, I just want to make sure that you thought this through, that there isn't any kind of uncomfortable power dynamic going on here, that, like, as someone close to a person in your life, that you might be mindful of the potential for abuse or even just like the relationship going badly because you don't want to see your friend get hurt, right? You do not know these people. You don't know the maturity levels. You don't know anything about this. It is not your job to police the relationships of actors that you know nothing about.
Well, and especially if even if that were people that you knew, your response wouldn't be to like start sending hateful messages to
Right.
the
Or
person dating your friend,
try to get
right?
someone fired.
Like, I think that the way that Elena handled that whole thing with Kip and Scott was it's actually one of my favorite parts beyond like eyes on me, handsome. But just he deserves sunshine and so do you.
Mm-hmm.
It's I'm worried about my friend because I'm concerned about my friend, but not like I hate you because you're dating my friend and I have concerns about it.
Right.
So even if those were people you knew, that would be a very weird way to respond.
Yeah.
Which I think it's very possessive,
Yeah.
right? Which is kind of what we've been saying this whole time, like this weird sense of ownership over people you don't know. Art is a gift to us. And incredible performances like we have in this show are also a gift to us. And the way we're saying thank you to that gift is by being nuts.
Right, here's the thing. Are you gonna be happy if, Hudson Williams and Connor Story are like, "You know what? I think I'm just gonna go back to working at Cheesecake Factory." Like, I don't like having people filming me all the time and commenting on my body all the time and trying to control my sex life all the time, which would be completely understandable. Like, we don't want that. That would be really sad because these are really incredibly talented people.
That is another weird thing that, like, the comments about their bodies. And I realize when you sign on to this role, you are to some extent saying, like, I am putting myself out there in this way. And I realize that there's going to be a response to that. There's going to be feedback. People are going to have thoughts and opinions. But you tell me if this is sort of a stereotype, isn't the right word, but one of those things that, like, kind of falls into the world of how society treats gay men is there's such a weird sexualization of these people beyond you played a very sexual role in this movie.
Right. Well, here's the thing, right? A lot of actors will, they'll tell you that, yeah, I mean, in my personal life, I'm not necessarily comfortable, being naked like in front of people. And they have this different sort of mindset that they go into when they're playing a role, which makes complete sense, right? And so, from my perspective, if people want to comment on Ilya being hot or like whatever, okay, fine, zero problem. And frankly, I think Hudson Williams has really like leaned into a lot of the like sexiness angle of
Yeah.
the coverage.
Oh, yeah.
So like clearly he's comfortable
He's
with
having
that.
fun with it.
So that's fine. But if someone is making it clear that this role that I played, I don't mind being sexualized in this role because that's almost like a different person, but I would like to be left alone in my private life. Again, there's this level of entitlement that, oh, because I thought that character was hot, I also get to comment on this person's body in real life whenever I feel like it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think probably some of it has to do with sexualizing gay men, but I also think that's very much true of female like
Yeah.
actors and pop stars, right? Like Billie Eilish, I remember, said something along the lines of, yes, I like to wear baggy clothes because I prefer not to have people like looking at my body and commenting on my body. And then at one point, she like goes and wears a corset for a photo shoot or whatever. Looks great. Awesome. Very cool. And people immediately turn around and they're like, oh, wow, wine mom bod. And it's like, well, that's why she was wearing the baggy clothes.
Yeah. And yes, like this has happened to women forever, but it is kind of demeaning. And like, I don't know if you've seen the clips of the Golden Globes where they were presenting Hudson
Mhm.
Williams and Connor Story. And like, I assume they have to approve what's on the teleprompters before they go out there. But their little bit was like, oh, I'm so nervous because I'm presenting at the Golden Globes. And then Hudson Williams is like, well, try that trick where you picture everybody in the audience, And he's like, well, everybody's seen us. And I was like, I feel really uncomfortable with these guys. Maybe they loved it and
Mhm.
they were all about it. Maybe they came up with it. But like there was something uncomfortable to me about this is the first time you've ever been on, a stage in this enormous context with all of these people watching. And you have to talk about how everybody has been watching you naked.
Mhm.
I really, really hope that they were like 100% on board with that because if not, like it just like I had just like a lump in my stomach. God, I really hope neither of them just felt like pressured to go along with that for the joke, but was
Mhm.
like, I really am so uncomfortable talking about this right now in front of all of these people.
Yeah. And oh yeah, it's just the whole thing is really, really sad to me that there is that possibility of this thing that should be so great for them and is like launching their careers also ending up being like really traumatic. It shouldn't be. Like you should not be objectified because of your sexual orientation. You should not be attacked because of your sexual orientation. I just think that people have a right to not have people constantly commenting on their bodies all the time in ways that they've expressed they're uncomfortable with.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that is the thing that is specific probably to queer media, the ways that, women maybe are objectified in straight love stories or whatever, is that maybe because the heterosexuality of straight love stories is just taken for granted, their sexuality is not really a focus.
Mhm.
But when we're talking about it being part of the storyline that these people are gay and figuring it out, then their sexuality is specifically a focus.
Mhm.
And that makes people feel like that's more fair game.
Well, and I wonder if there's also pressure on you as a creative that now all of a sudden the way I present myself and I reflect this character in real life is also going to be linked to everybody's perceptions of queerness and everybody's perceptions of what it means to be a queer man and that I can't suggest that I'm not comfortable with that sexualization because that might be construed as being ashamed even if you're not ashamed even if you're just like I would like to have a little bit of personal space please. Yeah, I wonder if that creates a little bit of extra pressure, which again is really sad. And I just think everyone should like stop doing that because if they end up not wanting to be actors anymore, I'm going to cry. And thus we return to this is why we can't have nice things. Stop ruining the nice things.
Exactly. Just be cool. And like, keep in mind that even though this show has been really well received and people love this story, hopefully there is a level of acceptance that is gained. But I don't know if you have seen that story about it was a referee that proposed to his boyfriend
Mhm.
at the end of the game and they got attacked at home recently. And I feel like it's just a reminder because everybody reacted to that with like, "Oh, I love this. This is so great." Right? But everybody doesn't.
Mhm.
And it's still not a completely safe world.
Well, and I mean, the NHL specifically, right? Heated rivalry has been associated with a huge increase in interest in hockey, which is great for the sport of hockey. That's very exciting. But NHL is like not particularly supportive institution. There was all sorts of drama over the last couple of years about like whether or not players would be allowed to like wear pride symbols while they played and they were being restricted from doing that. The International Hockey Organizing Body in November, I think, completely banned trans athletes from playing on the team associated with their gender. It's a little bit like we talked about rainbow washing that underneath all of this, like, yay, happy gay, there's still all sorts of bad stuff happening to queer people. And again, just enjoying heated rivalry does not make you an ally. Just thinking that Connor Story and Hudson Williams are hot does not make you an ally. If you want to be an ally and you want to actually support queer people in your life, you have to do more than that.
Yes. And respecting their privacy and not spreading rumors about their sexuality is a way of doing that.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a little more serious next time.
Yeah, obviously, as everyone's aware, there have been all sorts of big protest movements in the United States recently, most notably the protests against ICE in Minneapolis, have actually been incredibly effective, right? ICE is actually pulling out of Minneapolis. Great job. Way to go, people in Minneapolis. Obviously not problem solved, but cautiously optimistic, right? So we want to talk about the history of protest in the queer rights movement, how that intersects with the history of protest in the US more generally, and like what makes an effective protest. What strategies can we learn from various movements, and what philosophically makes a good protest?
All right. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
If you found this episode interesting, informative, amusing, please review and follow us on your podcasting platform of choice. Getting those reviews and follows really helps us show up more in the algorithm and be able to reach more people to help them. You can find us on social media, Instagram, and Threads at queerkid.straightmom, Blue Sky at qksm.bsky.social, and Facebook at Queer Kid Straight Mom. We are no longer on Twitter.